In this video, we are studying the correlation between physical activity and social class, looking at Mary Turner's life. She is considered to be part of the lowest social class.
I recently moved here to Manhattan, Kansas from Kentucky. I lived in an unsafe district and my oldest son started to get into fights. So we came to this neighborhood where it's safer and we can be closer to family.
This was Mary's old neighborhood, where 1/3 of the residents do not have a high school diploma and 30%, like Mary, live at or below the poverty line. Life expectancy here is an average of 69.8 years and 12% are unemployed. Mary moved her family to Manhattan, Kansas, a college town based around Kansas State University, with 96% of the population having a high school education or higher. Manhattan, Kansas has a poverty rate of 25%, 5% lower than where Mary was living before. Some other important characteristics of Manhattan to note is it being home to 55,909 people, with the average age being 24.6. The average people per household is 2.4 persons, and the median household income is $45,992. She now lives here with her parents, disabled husband, and 3 teenage sons. The 5 of them moved in with her parents into their 3-bedroom double-wide trailer at Redbud Estates. As you can see, Mary is living in a household that is far over the average people per household in Manhattan, Kansas at 7 people. Near a food pantry, Dillon's, Target, an ATA bus stop, walking trail, and school bus stop, accessibility is evident, and because she's living with her parents, her rent is significantly lower than what it was when living in Kentucky. Although she lives in a safer neighborhood now, social mobility has made her less likely to use the neighborhood park because it is seen as a middle-class value. Without anyone contributing to the family income, Mary and her family rely heavily on their monthly government checks. We talked to a researcher about the relationship between physical activity and income status.
Hello, I'm Janet Whitholm, a researcher at the University of Bristol in the United Kingdom. A recent study I participated in identified some key barriers in low-income households in relationship to physical activity. The main ones that we identified were the cost of physical activity, access to childcare, lack of time, and lack of knowledge on the importance of it.
Without a high school diploma, Mary is unable to get a high enough paying job that would outweigh losing her health benefits she receives from Social Security, disability checks, and SSI. These cover her medication that she needs in order to work, an impossible cycle that many find themselves in.
It's a little cramped in here, but it's really nice to have the grandkids back in town. We're just so happy to have Mary back.
Mary's parents are low working class with part-time minimum wage jobs. They help with the kids and Jerry when able, but time is limited. Mary worries about rent and cleanliness, as well as staying out of their way when needed. Her parents do not partake in much leisure time physical activity, which translates to Mary's actions as well. Dr. Marshall had some interesting insights on the relationships between women, income, and physical activity.
Regardless of race or ethnicity, women who were not in the workforce, had less than a high school education, or had a yearly household income less than $25,000 had a higher prevalence of leisure physical inactivity.
You want to watch some TV, Jerry? Right. Ugh.
Mary often feels guilty about taking time for herself to do things she enjoys. Most of her physical activity comes from being a caregiver to her family, and she typically fails to meet the minimum guidelines due to it being so task-oriented. Mary's 14, 16, and 17-year-old boys all attend high school and work part-time. They help themselves out by paying for school supplies and their own meals when needed, especially in the second half of each month. The 3 boys have never participated in many school sports or other activities because of money, risk of injury, and time needed for work. This limits their physical activity significantly compared to most their age, but they make friends with school and other neighborhood kids to try and stay active when possible.
I'm adjusting to my new life here. I don't participate in any extracurricular activities. I've never really played sports because my priority is making money so I can have a little bit of extra of it so I can spend it on myself.
Her priority is her children, so when food and money starts to run low in the last 2 weeks, Mary goes down to one meal a day to keep them fed. An improper diet leads to a major decrease in energy, which greatly affects her physical activity levels.
$50 rolls, $2.79. I can afford that.
Mary's past and current health problems limit the activities she can do. Even though she moved here to make a better life for herself and her family, there are still barriers that inhibit her physical activity based on her social class.
My physical condition, I had a heart attack, I got arthritis, and I have a thyroid problem. So I'm on a lot of medications for a lot of different things. My health, not great.
This housing situation allows her to be physically active by doing yard work, keeping the house clean, and walking to the grocery store. While Mary is often very busy and cannot leave Jerry alone for extended periods of time, she does enjoy volunteering at the local food pantry. She often enjoys the company of the other volunteers and the time to herself. We see a social gradient happening in Mary's life with her social class and physical activity here as much as we did in her past life in Kentucky. Being in the lower social class, Mary participates in a lower amount of physical activity than even that of her parents in the working class. After speaking with a health professional, we found that many people in the same socioeconomic status as Mary will use the emergency room as their doctor, and after receiving care, they tend to stretch out their medicine for money purposes. This isn't beneficial, and they try to refer them to programs to help them out, like the ones Mary is enrolled in. Mary's task-oriented physical activity is limited, but it is consistent in the morning and night. Her afternoon activities are different day to day, but she is usually participating in some sort of errand or responsibility in order to help her family. As an almost 50-year-old woman, there are certain social expectations and limitations that are placed on her, as well as her physical condition continuing to worsen. Ableism causes Mary to not only be physically limited, but socially limited as well. Mary wouldn't feel comfortable in a traditional workout environment because of her lower social class. Lower class isn't expected at gyms with those that have a higher status. Rebecca Lee from the University of Houston relates lower class individuals' energy expenditure and physical activity.
After accounting for individual level socioeconomic status, women who lived in lower socioeconomic status neighborhoods reported greater energy expenditure, but undertook less moderate physical activity than women in moderate socioeconomic status neighborhoods.
Lower class values and ideals are built into her lifestyle because of her upbringing. Mary sees leisure time physical activity as a life frill, not as something that could improve her life. Because of this, it makes it difficult to move out of her status and begin to make it a part of her everyday life.
Although we found expected relationships between residents in a lower socioeconomic status neighborhood and undertaking less moderate or vigorous physical activity among women, we also found that these same women reported greater overall energy expenditure, perhaps as a result of a greater work or travel demand.
Physical activity isn't really a priority for me. My main focus is on taking care of my family.